So, today we're going to dive into a financial theory from our source materials that frankly makes some of the boldest claims you have probably ever heard about money, debt, and the system we live in. And right off the bat, the source material hits you with this. What a staggering claim. It really sets the stage for a theory that suggests there's this entire hidden financial world that's accessible to literally anyone if they just know the process. The scale of this promise is just massive, so let's break down exactly what it's all about. At its core, what this theory is promising is a method to get a full refund for pretty much all of your personal debt. And it claims you can do this in an unbelievably short amount of time. And it gets really specific. The source states that if you follow its process to the letter, you could see a check for over $240,000 in just 90 days. So this isn't just about wiping the slate clean. It's being framed as a huge financial return. And we're not just talking about one type of debt. According to this theory, the remedy covers almost everything we think of as a normal cost of living. Your mortgage, your utility bills, car payments, credit cards. It's pitched as this universal key that unlocks all public and private debts. Okay, so a claim that big, right? It needs a pretty wild explanation to back it up. And the answer, according to the source material, isn't found in modern finance, but in what it describes as a kind of secret history of the United States. The entire foundation of this 1099 OID theory, the whole thing, rests on a completely different version of U.S. financial history, one that suggests the country operates in a way that is very, very different from what we're all taught in school. So this timeline here lays out the key moments that this whole theory is built on. It claims that way back in 1871, the U.S. actually became a corporation. Then, fast forward to 1933, FDR takes the country off the gold standard. As a so-called remedy for this, a resolution, HJR 192, was supposedly passed, making the Federal Reserve liable for public debts. And finally, the Social Security Act is said to have created the system that binds every person to this corporate structure through their birth certificate. So all of that secret history we just talked about, it leads us directly to the absolute core concept of this whole thing. The idea that the moment you were born, a separate legal entity, what they call a straw man, was created in your name, completely without your knowledge. And the legal trick for how this supposedly happens is something called a constructive trust. The idea here is that when your parents signed your birth certificate, it wasn't just a record of your birth. No, it was a legal act that supposedly transferred the title to all your future assets over to the state, creating this separate entity. And this brings us to a really critical distinction in this theory. There's you, the living, breathing person, and then there's you, spelled out in all capital letters, the straw man. That all caps version of your name, the one you see on bills and government documents, that's identified as the legal fiction, the corporate entity that is on the hook for all debts within this system. So how does this actually become a financial instrument? Well, the theory lays out this process. Your birth certificate creates the straw man, and that, in turn, creates a treasury bond. And this bond, which represents your value, your future earning potential, is then allegedly traded like any other security by major financial institutions. All right, so we've got this wild backstory, this whole straw man concept, but what's the solution? What's the so-called remedy? Well, this is the specific tool that followers of this theory believe can unlock this hidden system and let them reclaim the value that's being held in their strawman account. And here it is. The key that supposedly unlocks this entire system, according to the source material, is one specific IRS form, the 1099 OID. A document that's usually tied to investments is completely repurposed here as the main tool for this financial fix. So you're probably wondering, what on earth is an original issue discount? Well, in normal finance, it's basically the profit you make on a bond that was sold for less than its face value. But in this theory, that definition is stretched a lot. It's reinterpreted to mean that every single bill you get for your house, your car, your lights is actually proof of a debt that has a matching bond or income on the private side of the ledger. This quote from the source material really just sums up the huge mental shift you're supposed to make. The theory argues that a bill isn't a demand for payment from you. It's actually an admission by the company that sent it that they have created income based on your strawman account. And that income, well, it belongs to your estate. Okay, so we've got the theory, the why. Now let's get into the how. The source lays out a very specific, step-by-step administrative process for using this 1099 OID form to actually claim the refund. On the surface, they lay it out as a pretty simple three-step process. First, you file the Form 1099 OID. Then, after waiting a bit, you file a tax return that claims this OID as income. And the final step, they say, is you get a refund check in the mail from the IRS. But the devil is in the details, right? How you actually fill out this form is crucial. According to the source, you list the payer as the company who sent you the bill. The recipient is your all-caps strawman entity. Box 4 is the total debt amount you're looking to get refunded, and Box 1, the OID amount, is calculated as 24% of that total. So you're basically filing a tax form on behalf of the company that billed you, reporting income to yourself. Now, this next part is described as being absolutely 100% critical. After you e-file the 1099 OID, you have to wait about a month, and then you have to check your official IRS wage and income transcript online. The source insists that the 1099 OID you filed must show up there. This update is the litmus test. It's the proof that the IRS has accepted your filing, which then gives you the green light to file your tax return and claim the refund. And that really brings us back to the core question that this whole theory hinges on. It asks you to completely rethink the nature of money and debt. By laying out this alternative history and this supposed administrative remedy, the source material just throws a huge challenge to the fundamental financial rules we all live by, leaving us to think about this pretty radical and very provocative idea.